So the big question is this. Are you tired of the hustle and grind of fix and flip? Do you really think you can wholesale your way to success? What you really want is a cash flowing portfolio that lets you live a life of freedom, sunsets, and palm trees on your terms. But what if you're stuck because you have no capital, no time, and no idea where to start? That ends now. Your host, Corey Peterson, is a rags to riches real estate millionaire who started out with no money or credit and quickly grew a portfolio of cash flowing apartments. Not to mention, he did it all with other people's money. You're only one deal away from creating the cash flow life, and the Multifamily Legacy Podcast will show you how. So now, here's your host, the Big Kahuna, Corey Peterson. I'm just really excited that you're here and to continue this journey with you. So if you're here, listening to this podcast, you're probably someone that is tired of, flipping, tired of doing things month to month, year to year, doing the same kind of single family things that are, that are probably profitable. But the problem is you've got to do it each and every month. Or you've came here because you put your mind into bigger things and wanted to start with bigger projects. And really, in my mind, that's what multifamily investing is thinking a little bit bigger, right? I used to think, gosh, how can I own an apartment building, right? And that's all it was. I used to wish, I wish I could own an apartment building. And one day I changed my mindset, and all I did was change a little bit of the way I did it. And I asked myself, how could I own an apartment complex? And that, my friend, is the whole difference. That little shift is asking yourself, how can I? And that, hopefully that's why you're here, is you're wanting to discover how you can own an apartment building that will pay you time and time again and can make you wealthy really, really, really fast. So the first thing that you need to do, I think, is you need to go to my website, go to kahunawealthbuilders.com and download our free Quick Start Workshop. Okay, this is going to be where you're going to get a lot more information and a lot more detail about how you can find, acquire, and fund 100-unit apartment deals using other people's money, right? And that's the key thing, is other people's money. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So go do that now. Even have to pause this track, pause it, go do there, download it, and that'll help you get started. And it's going to give you a lot of insight so you can kind of do some of your own homework, right? So let's go back and let's talk about, in the last episode, what we talked about. We talked really about the big picture, and really I shared a lot of my personal story of how I kind of came about and got into the multifamily investing apartments, right? But we really talked about also why apartments. Why does it make sense to do apartments? And, we explained the 3 ways you got paid. We also talked about, you get to become an actual investor. In other words, you're starting to work as an investor and you're going to get a lot more benefits of tax benefits being an investor rather than a flipper. Remember, flippers, when you sell that property and you do a quick turn, you're paying ordinary income. And that's a pretty high tax bracket, and especially if you're making lots of money. And so apartments offer something, I think, way more juicier and way more funner, and that's cash flow. And cash flow is pretty cool. And the other thing, the third thing in my mind is that you get to scale what you do in a single family world, right? So it's really hard to buy 100 homes, single family homes, in any market, rather just one market. If you had multiple markets, that's even another whole minefield. But you can very easily buy a 100-unit apartment complex in one spot. Instead of 100 different yards to mow and tenants and things like that in different locations, you can have everything in one spot centrally located. And honestly, that just makes it so much easier. So that makes a lot of sense in my mind. So, and then also I shared with you how I got my my first deal, my $3.2 million purchase that is probably worth over $10 million now, and I still own and operate, and it still cash flows. So that was a lot of fun, exciting to share that story. So Moving forward, though, so here's kind of what's coming down the pipe. And I'm going to call these first episodes more like pillars, right? Secret pillars that I think you should know. And I think I've dove down into it, and I think there's probably 6 that we're going to talk about. And I'm just going to line them out so you can kind of get an idea of what we're going to be talking about in future podcasts. And then, once we go through these 6, we're going to go back to each one and then drill down even farther. So I'm really going to try to do you guys a really good job of getting the basics out and then going into each part and kind of really uncovering a lot more of the details, a lot of the little things that go on in the apartment world. It's a little bit messy here. It's a little apartments. There's a lot of things going on. There really is, but it's not difficult. It's just different is the best way to describe it. It's just different. So in my mind, there's really 6 secret pillars for successful cash flowing apartments. And the first one is really discovering the secret language of apartments. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But in future podcasts, we're going to talk about the secrets of finding apartment deals, the secrets of analyzing apartment deals to make them make money. In other words, how do what are you using? What tools are you using to analyze what you would think would be potential deals and being able to figure out, hey, is this a deal or not? Right? That's really, really important. And we're going to spend a lot of time in that deal. And then we're going to come back and even drill down farther in that one thing. And this is where, finding deals or at least getting deal flow, I think is fairly simple. But analyzing deals, that's the gauntlet. And then, the next pillar is, how to make offers, how to make attractive offers, how to get your deals accepted. Right? That's an important part of the deal. And that's all about salesmanship and making offers look attractive. And there's a way to do that. And then the next one that I think is really important, and we'll go in depth on this one, is how to fund your deals. And there's a secret way to do that. I mean, I've figured out that code, right? We've raised millions of dollars just from mom and pops people. So, it can be done, right? I started from nothing, so I know this. I mean, if you're starting from nothing, guess what? You can have success. You don't have to be born into money. And I find most great investors don't come from that. Maybe for the exception of Donald Trump, but even Donald Trump, look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump, he's like, well, I borrowed a couple of million, but he turned that million into billions. So, it doesn't really matter where you start, right? It's really how you play the game, how you finish, right? And what you're doing to set yourself up for retirement, for cash flow, to living the life. And we talked about this, what is success? Success is sunset and palm trees. It really is. It's living the life that you dreamed of and having the freedom to say, not today, In other words, if you, had kids, I have kids. And so, one of the biggest things that I get to be is my kid's dad. And I'm a full-time dad. I mean, I run all the school stuff. I run practice, right? I don't miss practices. I don't have to. I'm not working that hard in my business every day, grinding, that I have the ability to go and watch my kids practice. And I do. I love watching my kids practice. I get a lot of joy out of that. Watching, every game. I don't miss games. Really, I get to be a full-time dad. And maybe you're a mom. Maybe you want to be a full-time mom and you want to go to all the school functions and things like that, because, those things are crucial. And there's not to say that there wasn't, a period of time where I had to what I call sprint. So in this business, sometimes you got to learn how to sprint, and then you got to learn how to marathon. Sprinting is when you have to put in the work, and just like what you guys are doing now, listening to this podcast, you're trying to get your mind right. And sometimes you have to spend a little bit of time sprinting and like taking on the information, and getting it kind of all gathered in and processed. But once you get that, then you start to learn how to marathon. And so, you can't sprint forever. That's just it's not a good way to do business, and you'll burn out. So in this business, there's times when we get a property under contract, now we're sprinting. for maybe a 3-month period of time. We're really focused on what's going on. And then we get to marathon, right? And we just do the little things that make us successful. So that's really a good way to talk about it. So the last one is, I think, how to become a great operator. And being an operator is like saying, I have multiple projects and really managing these properties. And the great thing about this business is that you don't have to physically be the management company. I third party out all my third party management, and I like it that way because I don't want a day-to-day job. I just don't. I don't want to have to make all those decisions and have tenants call me and have to deal with employees and all the staff and all that stuff. I just personally choose not to. Now I could, and I probably can make more money because of it. But I mean, there's the simplicity factor of just having a management company and then managing that management company. And that's really how to be a great operator. And then I'm going to teach you, though, some things that we do on every property with my management company that will help you get profits into your pocket. And really, it's those little things. And there's a lot of little things. And that will be a fun episode that we really get into the operations of, how do you take over a property? How do you transition? What things should you do first? How do you increase rents? What kind of follow-up system do you have? All those things are really important and practical. And if your management company is not doing them, you really need to set a standard for what really, really works. So I'm going to give you a lot of my secrets on, how to be a great operator and how we raise rents by doing something as simple as changing lighting, right? We'll talk about lighting in detail because it makes a big difference. So hopefully that makes sense what we're going to be doing. That's a lot of good stuff that's coming out. And so I don't want to lose you guys, right? I want you to stay in this series as we go through it. I think you're going to get a lot of good information. And then if you go to my website and get the other stuff, you'll be well on your way to learning this business. And it's a great business, right? It'll give you the life that you only dreamed of. And it's a lot of fun. All right, so let's get right into it. Let's talk about discovering the secret language of apartments, okay? So we're going to talk about the ABCs. And it's not the ABCs of life, it's the ABCs of buildings. And so what we talk about when we're buying apartments, apartments are kind of graded in what's called, you have your A properties, your B properties, your C properties, and then you have the D properties, and which is really called the war zone. And so so just to kind of give you an idea of what that means. An A property is the new properties that you see being constructed. These are your very high-end properties that the rents are very expensive. They have all the amenities. They're fairly new, and honestly, they're built within probably the 2000s or on up. So the last 16 years or so. They have the big TV rooms. They have all the amenities, the big swimming pool areas. They have just lots. They have computer rooms nowadays. I mean, there's just lots of amenities, and you're paying for the amenities. Really, you are. And those are apartments that I guess that most investors that I use would never touch because they offer a very low rate of returns. And really, that's more of a developer game, right? If you want to develop apartments, you can make lots of money doing that. But most of the investors on those deals are like REITs or real estate investment trusts, right? Or just things that are looking for stable income and income producing type of things, and they give a pretty low rate of return. Then you have what I call the B properties, and the B properties are usually built somewhere in the 80s and 90s. And these are nice looking properties, really nice looking properties. They just don't have all the amenities, and they're just a little bit older. And B properties are actually a really great type of property because they're not having so much what we call deferred maintenance. So there's a term, deferred maintenance. What is deferred maintenance? Deferred maintenance is when a property owner or property management company is not taking care of problems that happen on the property. And this is a great, we look for properties when we're buying them that have lots of deferred maintenance. In other words, they're just not taking or putting money back into the property. So a B property is built in the 80s. They usually have washer dryer hookups. That's another big kind of distinguishing factor. And these are all still, now these are still subject to change, right? So, I mean, you can have an 80s that's still what we would consider an A property because it's in the right location. But generally speaking, a B, has washer and dryer hookups and, have, pretty nice amenities, right? So then you go down to the C's, and the C's are built in, the 70s, early 70s, early to late 70s, maybe the late 60s, right? And then anything after that, and typically the C properties don't have a washer and dryer hookup inside the unit itself. Usually there's a laundry facility, which is another great place to make some income, by the way. But that's typically the way it works. And then you have D, the war zone. The war zone is just the places that you wouldn't want to go to at night at all, and is just riddled with crime. And those are just areas that, honestly, you just want to stay away from. And so what I'm going to teach you how to do is, I don't know how to buy A's and make money, right? But I know how to buy B and C properties. And the why is because they don't build a B and C property anymore, right? And you have to do a lot of discovery to find them. But there's a lot of people that buy these buildings and then they don't run them properly. They mismanage them and things go wrong. And so there's always opportunities for experienced operators. Or if you're listening to my podcast, I'm going to teach you all the things that you're going to need to be experienced at to make value, right? To have a way to improve the property and make, more income. So there's great ways to do that. So just like there's ABCs in buildings, right? There's also what I call ABCs in the markets, right? And so, you have different areas of town, in any town that, hey, here's the best part of town, right? Here's where all the nicest stuff is. And so you have A areas, B areas, right? And C areas, and then the war zone. I mean, we know all these places, in your mind, when think of an A area is, that really hot spot in any town. And there's multiple A areas in any market, right? So I live in Phoenix. In Phoenix, we have, Chandler. So Chandler, Arizona. There's parts of Chandler that's definitely a B area. And there's also in other parts of Chandler that are absolute A areas. And so, and you know the difference. There's the new parts of Chandler where they have all the new development, new big box retailers, new, everything's kind of nice and new. Then you have kind of like the old part of Chandler that, there's smaller homes, smaller income areas. And, but they're still great neighborhoods. They're in a great location. Those are B areas. And then you have the C areas. And then you have the war zones of places where you wouldn't go at night. And so the trick is you want to find B and C properties, right? So B and C buildings you can make, and they don't build these things anymore. And, in B and C areas. And sometimes the areas can change, because what happens in this stuff is that, the path of progress can change and move, right? Sometimes an area that, I give an example here in Phoenix. We had in Mesa. Mesa is primarily what I would call a B area. Some parts of it are A. But they decided to make a tram or a light rail that was going to go all the way from there to downtown. And so some of these areas got way more exciting and moved up, and they were offering incentives to improve the area. And so there was great opportunities in that little segment. And that happens all across the United States, right? So it's not just held to one area. It could be multiple areas. So that's exciting. So that's the ABCs of areas. And so your best idea is like, if I could buy a C property in a B area, right? That's great. Or a B property in a B area. You don't always want to do the opposite unless it just makes sense, but you can buy a B property in a C area, but you'd like to see that area is improving, that it's not going down like from C to D, that it's improving, hopefully becoming C to B. And you'll know that through numbers and through data, and we'll talk about that in future episodes of how to do market analysis in the markets, how to determine where the path of progress is flowing, things like that, right? So, and this segues really good into the next piece that I want to talk about. It's called market cycles. So we all know that there's real estate cycles, and in today's deal, I mean, we just went through a really crazy cycle that in the 2005s areas that the market was crazy. It was just people were making offers on homes sight unseen for 30 grand more, to having one of the greatest recessions that we've ever had and experienced in my lifetime, where home values were like half of what they were. And so, and then it went all the way down to like 2009 was probably the bottom. And, now we've climbed our way up. And as we're climbing the way up, how much more do we have up, right? And that's the question. Everybody's saying, how long can this last? And, now we're starting to see interest rates rise. So it's crazy that, where we're at in the marketplace. And I would say right now we're definitely in the uptick, but it's not crazy yet. I mean, that's my opinion. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Is that there's not craziness going in the market. When there's craziness, that's when you're at a top of the market. And, you got to be really mindful of that when you're investing. Now, I'm going to tell you, though, the reason why I love apartments and this business is that it is based on cash flow, not appreciation. And so if you'll follow my teachings and learn to buy properties based on cash flow, you're going to be a lot better off, because, appreciation is something that we hope to come. And in the apartment world, we kind of force the appreciation by raising the rents. So everything's based on, income. So, and the great thing about market cycles is because sometimes investing in your backyard may not make a lot of sense, right? I don't own any apartment buildings in Phoenix. And the reason is because I don't think it's a great area to invest in. I would like to try, but the returns that I get are so small, where I can invest in somewhere like New Orleans, and I can make a really good return on my money. And so that's a great thing, a great reason for the apartment world, is that if you're done right, you're not tied to just like your backyard. Now you can always start in your backyard if that's what you know, but I would challenge you to look at it differently, to say, where's the best opportunity? Where's the best opportunity to make good money? And if you go about it that way, this business is pretty awesome, that you can find what I call emerging markets, or markets that have lots of potential. And so when we talk about emerging markets, what are we talking about? We're talking about growth. Where are people? Where are the jobs? Where are jobs coming back into communities? And how much are they paying? Let's, like in Texas right now, it could be a good time to buy some properties in Texas right now, just because of the oil industry is down, right? But we just had a new election, and there's a promise to be more energy independent with this current administration, and so there'll be some opportunities to buy. But hope to think that there's going to be those oil jobs coming back, and the exploration of oil. They just proved that they have bigger fields than they ever thought they had, and that's really good for the oil industry. So you don't want to be just like tied to your backyard. And in market cycles, every different city is in sometimes somewhat of a different market cycle. So meaning, like, maybe right now Phoenix is not the place to invest because the market's at its top. It's doing really, really well. But there's another place like New Orleans, right? And the reason I'm using New Orleans is that I just bought a property in New Orleans, in Slidell. And so, but it might be better, it make more sense to buy it in that market because it's still emerging. There's still more of a growth pattern. And so if we're doing these apartment deals, and we're gonna talk about how we want to buy them and hold them, for, in my mind, 3 to 5 years, if you have a longer time horizon, 5 to 7, right? Or in my opinion, if you find the right partner, you can buy these things and hold them forever, right? But if you want to sell them, when you're at the peak, the top of the market. So you can really do this and rise up a market, sell it at the peak, and then when you sell it, you're going to go look for another emerging market, or a market that is in that wake of, hey, it's on its upturn, and really compound your efforts by doing that. And that's the great thing, is that just because New Orleans is a good place to start now, 5 years, it might be the time to sell. And when I sell, I don't want to go back and just go buy at the same market, because it's expensive. It might be better to take that money out of New Orleans and go somewhere. Maybe now it's Atlanta. Maybe Atlanta is the place to be. So that really makes a big, big difference on the, where you invest, how you invest, and, what market that you choose. And, you should be choosing markets based on data. And, that data is not hard to find. We'll go into future episodes of where to find the data, where to do your homework when you're putting all this together. So we don't want to just like throw a dart on a map and say, gosh, that's where we're supposed to be, right? We're going to put a little bit of knowledge behind it, do a little bit of research, right? It's not a lot, but we definitely need to understand the markets that we're interested in. And, it's probably a good idea just to look at your own market, just to do the process, to look at it and say, hey, is my backyard, is it a good market? Because it very well may be. And sometimes, investing in your own backyard, it's not sometimes always a bad place to start, because you understand, your market better than anybody. All right. So the next big thing is when we're talking about the secret language of apartments, right? We've talked about market cycles, ABCs, is cap rate, right? Or capitalization rate. What is a cap rate? What is it, right? What does it mean? Because you hear this word a lot when we're talking about multifamily projects. And so what Google says the cap rate is the rate of return on a real estate investment property based on the income that the property is expected to generate. Or, the capitalization rate is used to estimate the investor's potential return on his or her investment. So cap rate equals your net operating income, or the income the property makes, divided by the current market value. So when we're like doing this, I like to kind of reverse it a little bit. And so change it up. So I look at cap rate as this. Cap rate is what a market is trading at for a stream of income. When you're buying a property, an apartment building, we're not buying it based on what the rents are and what, the location and how much the property is worth per se. We're basing it based on how much net operating income, right? That's NOI. NOI is net operating income. Is it making? And then what is the cap rate? And that's going to determine the value. So cap rates are really kind of setting the market for a particular stream of income. So to make this make sense, let's go back to our ABCs, right? In those A buildings, those new buildings, right? They're really nice and clean and polished and have all the, whiz bangs in there. Those sell at a very, very low cap rate because they're very desirable for a specific type of income. And so what is a cap rate for, an A and a B and a C? B properties, you're usually going to get between 6 and 8. And this is very general, right? 6 and 8 cap rates, maybe a little bit more. Sometimes you can find them at 10, right? A B property. C properties, usually you want to try to buy at 10 caps or better. And so what is all that, what does that mean? Let me give you the math behind it. Here's the best way to explain it is to say, okay, if I had a property that was producing $100,000 of NOI or net operating income, the market was at a 10 cap for that type of property. That means my market value, so it's 100K divided by 10% equals a market value of $1 million. Well, it's meaning an investor would be willing to pay you $1 million to receive that $100,000 of income. But if you could, now let's do the math differently. Now let's say we still have that same $100,000 of net operating income, NOI. And now the market was at an 8 cap for that property. Now it costs you $1.25 million, right? So $250,000 more for that same stream of income. So all that means is this. When you're buying a property, you want to buy at a high cap rate, the highest cap rate that you can possibly buy at. Properties are trending at an 8% cap rate in this particular market. If you could buy it at 10, a 10 cap rate, that's usually a pretty good sign that you're getting a good deal. Now, it all depends, right? It all depends on how, what's the property looking like and all those factors, right? So there's a lot of factors in doing your analyzing of a property. Here's the trick is, how do you buy at 10 and sell at 8? How do you buy at 10 and sell at 7? Can that be done? And the truth is it really can be, and it's a little bit simpler than most people think, is because, and it's really done through done through operations and having a consistent stream of income. So when you buy an apartment complex and you're operating it, and usually when you're buying these things, you've held them for quite some time. And I mean, by that I mean like not just 3 or 4 months. I mean like a couple, 3 or 4 years, 5 years. And that's why, in my mind, I like to go in multiples of 5 years, because I think that's a good place to start and it makes sense. So let's say you buy a property, and I'm going to use my New Orleans deal as an example. Is that I'm buying this property, and I think I'm buying it at a 10 cap or something close to that. Maybe it's closer to 9. Good property, and it's already like 95% occupied. It's already producing income. I'm getting a decent deal on this deal, and it doesn't need a whole lot of CapEx. Okay, CapEx is another word meaning capital improvements or money that I need to put into the property. Right, that's CapEx. It doesn't need a whole lot of CapEx. In other words, improvement on the property. But here's what I know, is that I know there's lots of investors out there willing to pay more for a property if it's a consistent cash flow. So I'm going to do that through operations. We're going to make some small improvements on the exterior of the property, clean it up, make it look nice. We're going to transition our tenants from paying with checks to actually paying online. We're really good at making those conversions of getting most of our tenants on a debit system, right, or ACH, and that does wonders. We're going to really go into those things in that operations segment that we're going to talk about, but that's a big deal for us. And the reason is because it collects the money from all our tenants immediately, so when they're not having to come and drop off a check, and there's no reason. Once people get conditioned on this, that money comes out and we can say our money's collected. And that is really important because, as we start getting the income and then we manage our expenses right, we're going to have very, very consistent income in our books are going to look very, very consistent year over year. You're going to be able to see us raising rents, over time, and you're going to be seeing the income get better and better and better. and our expenses, we're keeping them in check and keeping them tight. And when you have clean, crisp books for 5 years or so, and you got most of your tenants on ACH, all of a sudden that property is now worth a lower cap rate, or it's worth more money because you can show people that it's very, very consistent. And people will pay more money for a nice, consistent product. And so the value for us as we're trying to find deals is that we're looking for deals that we can buy at a good cap rate or good return for us, make improvements to be able to, make a lot more money, make value in the deal, right? So that's how you're doing this. And it's not that hard, but it does take some time, and it takes a little bit of education. So what we're going to keep on working through is like all these little things that you got to do. I don't think the apartment business gets done in one day, right? And this is not like a course you can go through in a day and be like, oh, I've got it. It took me a little bit of time. It took me a little time, a little effort to kind of learn the whole process. But, the big thing is to understand that there is a language in apartment building, right? Just like we talked about CapEx, right? What is CapEx? And so as I go through each and every segment, I'm going to start going through terms, and I'm going to say terms as they come naturally to me, but I'm going to remind myself to pause and like say, hey, here's a term. Here's a term that we need to know, right? And why is it? And it's really just how the jargon is in this industry. It's just a little different. Like we don't have tenants. We have rents. We have make-readies. Like what's a make-ready? A make-ready is when a tenant moves out, you got to make that unit ready. So it's just those little things that we do in this apartment world that you'll get to know, right? And it's not hard, but it just takes a little time. I'm going to wrap it up here pretty close. I'm trying to make these segments. I did my first segment. I went really long, almost like an hour. And I'm not sure if those are bite-sized. I think an hour may be too long. I don't know. I consume things in 30 minutes, and I like 30-minute segments. So if I can make this go into like 45 minutes, I think I'm doing it right. So I don't want to go a whole lot longer than a 45-minute segment because it's hard to retain that information. So with that said, here's what we're going to do is that, we're going to keep on, I'll keep on giving you like words and terminology into each segment. And then the next segment, you're going to really want to tune into because this is where we're going to start going over and remember the first 6 pillars that we're doing are the basic pillars, and we're going to dive in more detail. So we're going to go at this thing like 50,000 feet. And then we're going to come back into each segment and go down a little deeper. So our next secret pillar is the secret of how to find and source great deals and what I call deal flow. This is where you're going to learn how to take a deal or how to get deals coming to you. In other words, potential deals. And in this business, it's a lot different than I think the single family business in that you can still do what I call direct mail marketing. And that works. It is an absolute way to work it. But I think in this business still there's definitely what's a relationship factor. And because we're dealing with a more sophisticated seller, which is normally, we're looking for ownership groups or that are not apartment guys, right? So like I like buying stuff from like a group of lawyers, right? They're great at being lawyers. They're probably decent at running apartments, but they're just decent. Or sometimes, a lot of times, they make mistakes and they get into stuff that they didn't or shouldn't have gone into, and they have problems. And so I make lots of money by fixing problems. And honestly, there's like 2 or 3 major problems that we're always looking for. We're looking for properties that have that deferred maintenance, people not putting money back into them. And usually bad management or management problems, personnel problems. And a lot of times it's a combination of both. You normally have, you find properties that need a lot of work, or sometimes they need a little bit of work, but they need just the right amount of work. and it's usually coupled with bad management. And in my opinion, those things are really, really what I call fixable problems, right? You can fix bad management by putting in good management, right? It's like night and day. And normally, an extension of that is if you're having, sometimes it's your personnel, sometimes it's not the personnel. We've actually bought properties where it's bad management, but we kept, we didn't keep everybody, but we kept the good players. And a lot of times that's what happens is there's 2 or 3 good players in your apartment building, but it's the main manager that's really the sour apple. Your leasing agent could be a great leasing agent, or your maintenance guy could be a great maintenance man, but he's being led by someone that's not a great leader in on your management team, and that makes bad management happen. There's lots of little mistakes, and so and a lot of it honestly has to do with keeping up standards. It seems so like when I look back at this thing, it seems so simple, yet a lot of management companies, honestly, they're just worried. All they want to make is the money you pay them, and they're not fully invested into the outcomes. So it does with to say, you spend a lot of time finding good management companies. We'll go into that too, I promise. This is going to wrap up this segment. So I want you guys, if you haven't yet, make sure that you go out to KahunaWealthBuilders.com and get that quick start workshop. Okay. You're going to want to get that. It's going to help you go through and physically see what we're talking about. And the other part of that is, if you would be so kind as to take the time to get onto iTunes and rate this podcast for me. It means a lot. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of the people that make comments, and I'm going to make sure that I give you a shout out in our next episode. So be listening for the shout outs. And hopefully this was a great podcast. You guys got a lot out of it. So we look forward to get our next one out there where we're going to talk about how to get some deal flow, how to get things, starting to look at. And with that said, guys, appreciate it.